and welcome to a fabulous episode of The Partial Historians. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Greenfield, and sitting beside me, looking ravishing.
You're too kind. I got the flu. I don't have ravishing.
It is Dr. Radness.
Thank you. And but you are actually wearing green today, Dr. Greenfield. I'm impressed.
Look at me go.
Okay, so we're very happy to be back again, tracing the history of Rome from the founding of the city.
We're quite a fair way in. We're like at least 300 years in. I'm pretty impressed with how far we've gotten.
Actually, that's true. I always think of it from when the Republic is founded, which means we've like 30 years. But no, actually, I forget. We did do the kings. We did.
This has been happening for ages now.
All of a sudden, we seem to be moving at lightning speed. So where were we when we left off last time, Dr. G?
Oh, it was a cliffhanger worthy of Agatha Christie herself.
Murder most foul.
I've got notes including things like sounds fishy. Poor little Genucius, the tribune of the plebs, going hard, looking for agrarian reform, gets a trial up where the consuls are about to attend.
Yeah. And they've been going around, like last episode we talked a little bit about how the consuls are obviously, there are a couple of pairs of consuls involved in this. Both the consuls of the previous year, and we're sort of in the late 470s at this point in time. So Furius and Manlius, the consuls of the previous year, and Lucius, Aemilius, Mamercus, and Vopiscus, Julius, seem to have been all caught up in this. But Livy definitely dwells on Furius and Manlius. They're the ones he names as being, like, having their, Genucius's hands laid on them, before they are no longer consul. And he talks about them going around dressed in their sad clothes, otherwise known as their clothes of being a supplicant, addressing both the plebs and the young patricians. And to the young patricians, they actually have been giving advice, saying things like, you don't want to get involved in, serving the state, because look what happens. You're doomed to death.
And obviously the crowd responds favourably to these kinds of things.
They're like, every consul has to just hop to it. Oh, damn it. I'm going to try that again. Take two. Every consul just has to hop to it. Oh man, why can't I click anymore? There we go.
It's back.
Hey. The funds. Okay, one more time. Every consul just has to hop to it. Yeah, when the tribune says so. Just like commoner or something. And they talk about the historical examples of Coriolanus and how he was banished, and Menenius was put to death. And it's all because of these meddlesome tribunes and the plebeians. So just don't even think about becoming consul. Just don't even think about it.
It's tough times.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously all the patricians think about. So this is pretty big talk. Yeah. But, I mean, let's face it, then the murder happens, right? So they're meant to show up for the trial. Oh, sorry, their trial's meant to happen. And Genucius
turns up dead.
Doesn't show. Yeah. So the people are all milling around, waiting for Genucius to turn up, and they start to obviously get a bit restless because he hasn't. Some think, okay, he's been scared off by the patricians. Others, however, think that he has actually been talked into betraying them somehow and, leaving them to their own devices. Clearly, the plebeians are being painted like massive sheep because without him, they seem they seem incapable of doing anything. They're just legalists, just wandering around going, "What do we do?
This is a huge issue, actually, because, the tribune of the plebs is supposed to be a bit of a collective.
Yeah.
There's a few of them.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all supposed to be, they're supposed to be working together for the common good of the plebeians.
Yeah.
But one turns up dead. And the fact that Genucius has turned up dead throws into relief the question about when is it precisely in tribunician history that tribunes are granted this sacrosanctity of their body.
Well, see, Livy's account is really interesting in this respect because he does kind of explain the lack of another tribune taking place. I mean, it seems that this is Genucius's baby, and therefore he's obviously meant to be turning up on the day. And then when he doesn't show, everyone's a bit like, and then they hear the rumor that he's been found dead in his house. So once they learn that, they all just kind of, start going home again, I guess. But Livy does say that the other tribunes are terrified by the death of Genucius. And let's just, I'm sorry, this isn't very mysterious, but let's just set the record straight here and now, listeners. It's not a natural death. He didn't just have a heart attack, eat too much sugar the night before and slip into a diabetic coma from which he never awoke. He didn't have like a, autoerotic asphyxiation situation. Like
the best way to go, really.
Yeah. Just throwing out all the possibilities. It is not a natural death.
Really? So what does Livy have?
The patricians totally had him murdered.
Okay.
And in Livy's account, the patricians aren't even trying to hide it. They walk around gloating about the fact that they had him murdered.
Oh, our sources are so discrepant right now.
Yeah, well, no, in Livy's account, the patricians are walking around being like, yeah, how about that for some action? Yeah.
You want to see this consul?
Yeah.
That's how I lead the Roman people.
Exactly, yeah. Manlius. It's in my name, bitch. Yeah, they walk around talking about the fact that they had organized this murder, and the other tribunes are obviously
scared off.
Absolutely scared. I mean, they're so terrified. And the thing that's interesting, I think, is that Livy says they are warned by the death that they have no protection. That they might have thought they had like some sort of security, but that this shows them that there is no protection for a tribune. Now, it's hazy enough that I think you could still say, okay, they just expect a certain amount of protection as someone in a position of power and prominence. Duh. But you could also take it to mean that they thought they were protected because of the sacrosanct thing, and then it turns out
that they're not.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like I want to go with that interpretation just because of the way that in the previous episode, Livy says that Genucius laid his hands on the consul. And like then this seemed to be like a thing. Yeah. Of like, whoa, stop in your tracks, guys.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like, ooh, well, we can't touch him, but he can touch us. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Precisely. So I kind of want to go with that. I mean, I probably should look at Latin, but who has the time?
It's tough out there.
Yeah, so that's the impression that I have. What do you have, since your version sounds like it's quite different?
Dionysius really palms this off as not a murder.
Okay.
First of all, he doesn't have the story about Genucius laying his hands on the consuls.
Right.
So that part is, if he knows about it, he's omitted it. And then when it gets to the point of the actual death itself,
right,
he's found in his bed without the least sign of stabbing, strangling, poisoning.
The least sign.
Or any of the other means of killing as a result of a plot. And I was like,
well, I'm relieved to hear there's the least sign of stabbing.
No sign at all that like this was a murder.
A slight puncture. Are you sure there's not a slight puncture?
I mean, I feel like, just the tip.
Yeah.
Is what, that's the moment.
Especially if he's in bed.
Yeah. Genucius found.
Yeah.
Reports at noon.
See, Livy is like, not only are the patricians boasting about it, but even those who had absolutely nothing to do with it, like weren't in on the murder at all, they want to be known as being part of it. And so they walk around going, yeah, that's right, I was totally in on it the whole time.
I feel like this is a bunch of really young patricians.
Oh, totally. Well,
being like,
that's why
I was with Manlius last night, and that's how it happened, that we were talking.
I think that's why Livy actually has that speech, which is specifically directed at the young patricians. Because, as I say, they are the hotheads. They are the people, the douchebags with the crazy hair, like, cruising around Rome. In their expensive cars, being total dickheads.
Okay, here's my reconstruction of the events of the night. Manlius gets together with some of the older consuls, but
with Furius.
But Furius is there. But there's some of the young guns around, and they talk about killing Genucius.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do it.
No, of course not.
Some of those young guys are like, you know what? This is how we make it. This is our break into politics. And so they do it, and it's a bit like that time where the Egyptians have killed Pompey. And they're like, how about that? And Caesar's like, no!
You idiot!
I wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
This is insulting. And this is sort of how it operates. I don't know, though. So, I mean, Genucius, presumably we've got tribunician sacrosanctity at play. It would seem. And if it's not, it's being rejected really nicely into this narrative to play out some of the increasing tensions between plebeians and patricians in this moment, because the only thing Genucius has really asked for is the same thing that every plebeian has asked for every year since 486, which was, please can we redistribute the public land?
So that we can have food!
So we can have some grain in this grain crisis.
If I only had some grain. Yeah, well, see, when they're bragging, the patricians in my account, they talk about the fact that the tribunician power has to be subdued with severe measures.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not good.
No, and that's what I mean. Like, I feel like this is legitimately meant to be a warning. This is the horse's head in the bed of all tribunes. That's a Godfather reference, by the way. Yeah. This is the warning. This is the warning. Fall into line or else. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can be as sacrosanct as you like, my friend.
Precisely.
That's not going to save you from my dagger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly, Livy actually doesn't really tell me how he was killed. Just that he was killed.
It seems that the patricians get a lot of impetus from this moment, though, to really run with what seems to be a policy of trying to push down the plebeians even further.
Totally, yeah.
And one of the ways that this plays out involves Volero, Publius.
Yeah.
Oh, so many syllables.
Can you handle it? Do you know, it actually kind of reminded me of a character.
Volero.
I was going to say, it reminded me of a character in Wicked. And whenever I see this name, I think, Volero! Like they do in Wicked, but anyway.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Valero.
Yeah.
I'm going to call him Valero because his last name has sometimes more or less syllables, depending on which version of the history you're looking at.
Publius.
Publilius.
Publilius.
Or Publius. Publilius. And I'm like, okay, guys, settle down. We don't need that many little.
Yeah. La 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 la. Yeah. Okay.
So Valero is a centurion.
Yes.
And he's known as a centurion. He's been on some recent campaigns commanding his own troops as a centurion.
Totally.
And then it crops up that in the new listing...
Wait.
Oh, I'm pausing.
Sorry.
Oh,
Can you just remind our listeners, because there may be some new ones out there, what a centurion is?
Ooh,
exactly.
Yes, a centurion is a small-time commander of a group of about 80 soldiers.
Yeah.
Don't be confused, centurion does not refer to a century.
No.
It refers to a Roman century, which is about 80.
I think that the popular impression, like, maybe this is just me, but before I actually started studying Roman history, I always thought a centurion was just what you called any Roman soldier.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it wasn't...
Is this a position of command?
Exactly, yeah. So, sorry, just wanted to flag that it is actually kind of a, cool position.
Yeah, it is a cool position, and usually you get to be a centurion because you've come up the ranks of the common soldier.
Yes, yeah. So you'd be like a veteran soldier.
Yeah. So it's one way of having a military career as a plebeian.
Yes.
Coming through the ranks of common soldiery.
Yeah.
You probably end up in charge of your own like little camp group first of all.
Camp leader.
Yeah, of about 8 men. Be like, hey buddies, I'm in charge. Let's make soup tonight. Everyone's like, yes sir, yes sir. And once you've held that kind of role, you're in sort of contention to then become a centurion, which is the leader of a whole bunch of these kind of little camp groups.
Cool.
There's a whole bunch of these sort of like intermediary positions.
Obviously, yeah. Thank you for your clarification, Dr. G.
No problem.
Sorry, so Valero. He's a centurion. He's been serving, etc.
He's been serving for a long time. He's on the list as a centurion. You expect to go back in at the rank that you held previously.
Yeah.
In the new list that the consuls put together, they decide to list him as a common soldier.
Yeah, see, this is a little different to mine. Livy actually admits that the the murder of Genucius, he says that this is like obviously a victory for the patricians. But he's actually not a fan. He's like, this is a precedent, but a really, like, it's a bad one. It's bad. Because it's obviously involving, a murder.
Politics or murder.
Yeah, exactly. So he admits it's not a good way to set things off and establish a power. But he introduces Valero by talking about how the consuls issue the order for the levy of soldiers to happen. Okay, so where everyone has to, like, enlist themselves. And the fact that the tribunes don't do anything. They're just like, cool. So it's a very smooth process, but herein lies the rub.
Ooh.
The plebeians are furious because they feel like the tribunes should be standing up for them and being like, I don't think so. I mean, we've talked about this, guys.
We don't want to go to war anymore.
Exactly. We talked about the fact that we can't be soldiers all the time. We do have other things that we need to do. We have lives that we need to live.
Grain.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, and so the plebeians are really unhappy, and they're like, we are right back to where we started if you're not going to say anything. This is awful. Basically, tribunician power died with Genucius.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're like, so clearly we need something else that is going to put a stop to the tyranny of the patricians. Okay. And therefore, they're like, well, maybe we should be looking after ourselves. Like, we've got no one protecting us. No one is looking out for us. So we kind of need to look out for ourselves.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know exactly.
This is a nascent plebeian uprising. I like it.
I don't know what exactly they are thinking is going to happen, but nonetheless. And so Volero starts being worked into the narrative here because Volero is an ex-centurion.
Aha.
Okay, and apparently an ex-centurion is, as you said, an ex-centurion cannot... like in theory, obviously, cannot be enlisted as a common soldier. Also, centurions could also become lictors when they retire from the army.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So, I mean, Volero seems to have a bit of a complicated backstory.
Yes.
Dionysius suggests that the reason why that he might have been listed as a common soldier instead of a centurion is because he had been pulled up for some misconduct, unspecified, on some former campaigns, and he had actually offended the consuls in some way.
Well, see, I wonder if it's to do with this, because basically, so he's entitled to become a lictor, because a lictor, I didn't actually know this until I looked it up today. Sorry. Fresh listeners.
Yeah, get in there.
Yeah.
Lictors.
Yeah, lictors. They're kind of meant to be the bodyguard of the magistrates, so the people who are in power. And so they usually, we've talked about them before, I think it's the people who carry the fasces, which are the symbols.
Bundle of rods.
Yeah, exactly, which are the symbols of the power of the magistrates. The idea being that they're a bundle of rods bound together with an axe or something similar.
So sometimes they have the axe and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends on what's going on.
Either way, with rods or with an axe, you can do some damage, and that's kind of meant to be the symbol, I guess, of the power. But anyway, so they're basically meant to be his bodyguard. They attend him. They attend the magistrate all the time when they're out in power. They make sure that the crowds are cleared before him, and they also summon those who need to appear before him for punishment. And this is, I think, I didn't realize that they used to be, like back in this early period, plebeians. Because at some point,
I never really thought about it.
Neither had I.
But it makes sense.
Neither had I. So lictors are traditionally plebeians in like very early times, but it changes at some point where they actually become mostly freedmen. So I think in the period that you and I have mostly studied, which is generally later than this, they've probably been freedmen, and they're exempt from military duties. Basically at this point in time when they're mostly
being
plebeians,
drawn from ex-soldiers.
Well, being a centurion gives you the option to become a lictor. I think as a sign of, as you say, like the respect of like what you've done, and you're also exempt from military service. Once you've done that, you get paid a salary. You're a bodyguard. I guess.
You got the skill set.
You got the skill set, exactly.
We've got a cushy job for you in the city. Are you interested?
Yeah.
It involves carrying sticks. Okay.
I'm listening. Yeah. And so basically, I think that maybe Volero gets into trouble because a lictor is sent to summon Volero because he'd caused up a bit of a ruckus about being enlisted as a common soldier. I think maybe that's what we're talking about. And Livy actually even notes, though, that as like an FYI, that, so we've got these plebeians acting as bodyguards, and he's like, but they're, they could not be more ridiculous and worthy of scorn in a sense, because... they're basically not super impressive bodyguards. I'm guessing is where he's going from
okay.
Here.
I mean,
he says no force could be more contemptible or less capable of resistance if the people had but the spirit to despise them. So it's almost so he's like, they couldn't actually do anything if push comes to shove, but the plebeians aren't really pushing back as much as they should.
Dionysius' account here is much more visceral.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
So Volero kicks up a stink
Yep.
about being enlisted as a common soldier, being placed down on this particular list and being demoted effectively from centurion, regardless of whether it was deserved or not. He kicks up a stink. The consuls that are around at the time who are doing the list notice that he's behaving poorly, and they order their lictors to strip him and lash his body.
Oh, that they get to this. Yeah, Livy gets to this. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, excellent. So there's some scourging going on. So the scourging is ordered.
Threat of scourging, in my account.
Well,
yeah.
So Volero calls upon the tribunes for support in this moment. He's like, my body is about, I need help from the tribune of the plebs. Like, the protection of my body is in the hands of the tribune of the plebs. That's their role. Their sacrosanctity is meant to intercede.
Totally, yeah.
And he asks that if he's guilty of any crime, that he actually wants to stand trial before the plebeians.
Okay, that's a little bit similar to mine. Yeah, there's a lot of speechifying going on.
It gets worse.
Yeah, okay.
So the consuls refuse to listen to that request.
Yeah.
We're not even sure if the tribune of the plebs are around at this moment, but he's put out the call.
My account makes me feel like they are there, because in mine, like yours, he does appeal to the tribunes to protect him.
Yeah.
And they don't support him. Livy says they don't support him. So it kind of makes it sound like they are there. And it's when he starts appealing to the people, like going, well, if the tribunes aren't going to support me, then maybe you guys will. And it's while he's giving this speech that the lictors are getting furious and just tearing his clothes off in preparation for the beating that he's about to get.
He tries to
you
rile
must
up
be naked
the crowd.
to be beaten. You must be naked.
You shall be clothed, and thus we shall beat you. So this gets out of hand. It's not clear in Dionysius' account that the tribunes are there or not.
Okay.
So it's not, the onus isn't placed on them to get involved.
Yeah.
But he does ask for a plebeian trial.
Yeah.
Well, they're probably pretty scared right now, so I wouldn't. If I was a tribune, to be like, my body just got murdered. I don't know what you want me to do. My body is not as sacrosanct as I thought.
No.
And so the lictors come at him, and he then punches the first lictor in the face.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happens in Livy. He does note that Volero is a particularly strong specimen, which, you might expect,
vigorous.
I suppose, as someone who's managed to work their way up to be a centurion and then survived, because obviously being a centurion, this means he's survived numerous battles. So yeah, you would think he'd be pretty tough.
Yeah, this guy's not taking it. He's like, I see you, old man, former centurion lictor coming at me. I can take you. I am a fresh specimen.
Yeah.
And punches him right in the face.
Well, I also have a hint.
Amazing.
I have a hint that maybe some people around him also are like, yeah, I'm going to get in on this. Because I do have a hint that plebeians are helping him to keep the lictors away.
This seems to be the moment where another lictor comes at him, then he punches that one in the face as well, and then the people get into it. They're
it's popping.
So it's like you've got to imagine it's a street scene, and the consuls are sitting at a table being like, "Here's your list for the army," and the plebeians are all like, "I'm here for the news," and they're like, "Oh, what up, sunshine?" And then they grab their man. Volero, and they're like, we'll look after you. Oh, that was mad. You punched some lictors. And they're like, yes. And so they sort of embrace him and protect him from the rest of the lictors that are coming for him.
Yeah.
And then they start, it's just like an all-out street ball where the plebeians are punching lictors.
Yeah.
And the lictors are trying to get to Volero, but they can't.
And Volero is inciting them in my account by saying things like this. I appeal and implore the protection of the commons. Support me, citizens. Support me, fellow soldiers. You have nothing to expect from the tribunes, who themselves stand in need of your support. Now, if that's not catchy, I don't know what is.
Excellent times.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So totally getting out of hand. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I imagine is just terrifying.
Yeah. And eventually this plebeian mob turns on the consuls themselves.
Yeah.
Because the lictors are kind of it's 12 men at most against a horde of plebs who are now really angry and riled up.
Exactly. And if what Livy says is true, They are a sorry bunch of plebeians. Yeah, but I love the way that Livy puts the way that the consuls are confronted by this angry mob. And I love the way that Livy describes it. He says, the consuls quickly experience their dignity, unsupported by strength, is not exempt from danger.
Guys, I gotta leave.
So in other words, they're like, we can be as high and mighty as we like, and we can wear fancy clothes, but if we don't have, like, armed forces behind us, we can be in quite perilous situations.
I think we must retreat.
Yeah, and so the lictors then get a sound thrashing in my account. The fasces themselves are broken.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Intense.
Yeah, and that's like, I actually don't think I've ever noted the fasces actually being broken
Yeah,
before.
That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty full on, yeah, because as I said, they are the symbol of the power of the magistrates.
Yeah.
So
this is a big moment.
yeah, there's like
Fasces broken.
I mean, do you know, I've been waiting for the Plebeians to react like this, and for God's sakes, how many times have they made threats and nothing's ever really happened?
It's hard when you're hungry.
Yeah.
Or maybe this is all just like a Snickers scenario.
Right.
You're just not yourself
That's
when you're
right.
hungry.
Exactly.
I mean, if you fed the plebeians, would they have turned on you like this? Probably not.
Yeah, and so the lictors in my account are actually, I mean, they're obviously meant to be helping, defending the consuls, but they themselves are forced to to flee for safety inside the Senate house because, I guess they're going to be torn limb from limb. And they themselves are thinking, okay, so Volero is clearly inciting this mob and he's not sure where Volero is going to stop. I mean, they're obviously feeling like Volero might say, let's just murder them. Let's just do it. Eye for an eye.
I'm ready.
Eye for an eye, my
I got
friends.
the skills if you've got the will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's only at this point when the consuls are fleeing from the scene that the tribunes of the plebs come up in Dionysius's narrative.
Oh, okay.
And he mentions slyly that actually they have been there the whole time. And
I
they've been doing nothing.
Yeah, I feel like they have been there the whole time. Volero seems to be drawing attention to the fact that they are doing nothing.
So I think you're totally right there.
But basically, it seems like this angry mob, now that the people who they're angry with have either taken refuge somewhere where they can't get them, or they've left the scene altogether. So the anger seems to die down a little bit, enough for the Senate to assemble. Okay, and in front of the senators, the lictors start making complaints about, you'll never believe it, they broke my fasces. They were brand new, don't you know?
I was just doing the job I was hired for.
Most outrageous. In particular, that young fellow, that whippersnapper, Volero. He's nothing but trouble. We need to do something. And they start complaining, to the Senate.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I don't know whether you have this noted in this year, because I think it probably happens right at the very end. But obviously, everyone's talking about how, yes, we should punish the plebeians. They've been well out of order. They need to be put back into their place. However, interestingly, the older senators, let's be real, patricians probably, they actually prevail during this debate in my account. And what they have said is, okay, look, yes, things got out of hand. And yes, there definitely was some violence. However, we want to respond in a way that doesn't seem like we're just acting on emotion and just acting on resentment. Let's just make sure that we're not too carried away with our feelings, because after all, isn't that what the plebeians were doing? Like they were acting out of their emotions. So let's just, think about it. In the meantime, right at the end of the year, the plebeians are all about Volero. They want the Volero merchandise. They want the t-shirt, the bag, the hat. They're in. And so they are going to choose him to be their tribune for the next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where I'll pause and let you...
Oh, it's intense.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. What a career trajectory.
I know.
Fallen centurion, tribute of the plebs. And it seems like a reasonable one. Like, he's whipped up the crowd. He's got a lot of popular support. Of course, the plebs are going to vote him in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, the patricians retreat, certainly, and they seem to get pretty hot-headed in Dionysius's account. There's calls for Volero to be thrown from the Tarpeian Rock.
I feel like that might have been one of the measures that's been mooted around in my account, just not specifically named.
They're like, let's do it. Let's hurl him from the precipice. Let's get rid of him forever.
Yeah.
And the plebeians, on the other hand, are climbing around outside this senatorial gathering, being like, we need to have justice. If there's going to be a trial, it's going to be a proper one. None of this throwing from the rock business. And so there's a sense in which there's a bit of a tussle backwards and forwards. And the plebeians want to see Volero treated with justice. And it seems like the patricians are like, well, we'll think about that. It's sort of like...
Justice, you say. It seems like a foreign, crazy concept to us. Let me think about it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a low ending to this year from Dionysius. He doesn't really foreshadow what's to come for Volero's career. You just sort of get this petering out being like, and that's all that happened this year, folks.
I like my account better. I have to say, I feel like Livy's really pulled it out for me today.
Oh, Livy, coming to the fore.
He tends to like this kind of stuff, though, I must admit. But yeah, no, I like the way it ends, and I think it makes sense. You know, it makes sense that they be looking to someone who's, I mean, okay, he's not like he obviously spoke out because of self-interested, reasons at first. But they're right. Volero doesn't seem to be scared of the tribunes, and he can hardly go back on it now. He's already talked about how the tribunes are lame. So
yeah, look, any guy that's willing to punch some lictors in the face, is somebody I want to see go places. I mean, where is this going to lead?
I know. I feel like, Dr. G, that this is this calls, because as I say, this is the first time in a while I felt really proud of the plebeians and the way that they're acting. I feel like we should celebrate by ending on a high five.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no,
that sucked. Much better. Oh, turns out we can't high five, guys. That's historians for you.
I think it's just mean, like, we've both been sick. Feel like we're missing some of our sound effects today. Anyway, speaking of sound effects, Dr. G, I think it's time for Other Partial Pick.
Is it, though?
Eagle.
Oh, it is.
I hadn't taken Eagle's mask off.
It is time, indeed.
All right.
The partial pick.
Yes.
Where Rome can score a possible 50 gold eagles.
Ooh, they definitely gone up last time. So where are they going to be this time? Let's see. Okay.
All right. First category.
Yep.
Military clout.
Well, there's
not a lot going on
there. No. I mean, there's fighting, but not military. Like, not the proper military kind.
No.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Unless you want Volero's, taking your centurion skills to punching lictors.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's going to be 0. Okay.
Sad face.
Yeah.
Diplomacy.
Okay, well, not really. I mean, isn't that kind of the problem in the first place?
This might be another issue Rome is contending with.
Yeah, I mean, the patricians have murder and then being just general douchebags that don't compromise as usual, so yeah,
it doesn't feel like diplomacy is happening.
Okay, so that's also I think a 0.
Expansion.
Nope, just internal problems.
Flat 0 there. All right, virtus.
Okay, now this we could maybe work with. I mean, okay, the murder's bad. The Romans aren't fans of murder, so that's bad, but...
And I feel like patricians claiming the murder, that's not a good sign of virtus.
No, because that's the thing, like, even by patrician standards, like, and this is why Livy makes that little comment, this is no good. Like, you just can't go around murdering fellow citizens, whether you're a patrician
That's
or
how
not.
you break the state, guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the Romans do take murder very seriously, as do, I say that like they should.
Let's talk about people who don't take murder seriously.
No, I just mean, as in, obviously we consider it to be bad and we consider the impacts of murder and that kind of stuff in our society, but it is like obviously it has like a religious dimension, if I'm wrong.
It does. So if you murder a person inside the pomerium, that is especially bad.
Yeah.
Which is clearly what has happened to Genucius.
Well, yeah, if he's found dead in his house.
He's found dead in his house.
Yeah. So it is like a really bad pollution.
Yeah. It is a bad pollution. Yeah. And you have the fact that people who deal with dead bodies tend to be segregated out from most ancient societies.
I had forgotten about that. Yeah.
Bodies always have to be taken outside and dealt with in some way.
Only naughty Vestals get to be buried inside. And they're buried alive.
Yeah. They don't die, technically.
Okay, yeah, so that's bad. But I feel like
Volero perhaps exhibits some virtus. He represents the Roman spirit in a time when it seems like the patricians are not willing to be invested in the in the virtuous that we expect from Romans.
Well,
really.
exactly. I mean, this is the thing. It's weird because obviously you would kind of expect Livy and Dionysius to be on the patrician side. And
Dionysius is definitely on the patrician side.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it often seems like they are, obviously, because the plebeians are generally like this faceless mob who act like sheep. But I definitely feel like the patricians are coming off as the, typical mustachio-twirling villains in this particular piece. And Volero is, like, the traditional hero type in that he's, done his military service. He just wants to be left alone. Every time he thinks he gets out, they just pull him back in. It feels like, there's a definite...
Yeah.
Kind of reminding people, tribunes, stop being pussies. Patricians, stop being villains. Let's get this together.
And so he's sort of become the representation of the tribune of the plebs in the moment that the tribune of the plebs have become cowed by the patricians.
Well, he reminds me. Do you remember when we were very first talking about the problems between patricians and plebeians? And there were those guys who would, strip off in public meetings and stuff and be like, look at my battle scars. Ah! Listen to me. And it was always meant to be like, oh, yeah, look at those battle scars.
Yeah, that dude.
Let's take him seriously.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
I feel like that's kind of what Volero... I mean, Volero didn't strip himself. He was stripped because they were going to try to beat him, but...
You would have seen some nice wounds there, my friend.
Yeah, I just feel like the whole thing gives me that vibe.
Yep.
So, but it's not... He is speaking out of self-interest at first. So I feel like it's going to be like a 5?
A 5 sounds good to me.
Yeah, okay, let's go 5. All right, cool.
He's halfway there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, finally...
The citizen score.
The citizen score. I feel like this has been, again, very low lately.
Yeah, but if you're a hungry plebeian in the city right now and you just got into some mob violence,
things are
looking good.
You finally get to beat up some
be like, you know
class
what?
traitors.
You see those consuls over there? You're not so big and mighty now. We've taken down your lictors, are you?
Hey. Okay, so, I mean, let's face it though. Nothing's actually been achieved yet. So gotta keep that in mind. They're still hungry. Hangry, whatever. Snickers really satisfies. This is not paid for by Snickers. So I feel like it's definitely an improvement. But again, nothing's really changed. So I kind of feel like it also has to be a 5. What do you reckon?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Well, actually, a little bit more disappointing than I thought it was going to be, and I didn't need my calculator.
It was exciting times, but the score is quite low.
It is a mere 10 golden eagles for this point in Rome's history.
Oh, Rome.
Sorry, Rome. Play again later.
Bit of a fail.
Yeah. All right, well, Dr. G, thank you once again for keeping me company for a delightful period of time.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Talking to you is one of the joys of my life.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing where Volero is going to go. I feel like that boy has got a future ahead of him.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.